Greetings, everybody. Mike Wilkerson here for the True Blood Transfusion, the Fangbanger Podcast video-only fan feedback segment featuring input from you. Today I'm here with
David Carete, the host of the Fangbanger Podcast.
And we're going over the True Blood news and fan feedback for the most recent episode, the second episode of Season 5.
Authority always wins.
Authority always wins, and in fact, inside this episode, it did.
Yes.
Remember that you can listen to our complete review of this most recent episode, Episode 2 of Season 5, by clicking the links right above us inside the Fangbanger Podcast website, or by clicking the link right below us inside of the YouTube channel over at twoguystalking.com. Our first piece of input is about the Gauntlet. David, what am I talking about?
The Gauntlet is an opportunity for you, the viewers, to win cold, hard cash simply by giving us feedback.
Right, and we're not talking about $5. We're not talking about $10. We're talking about $100 cash. And all you've got to do is do 5 short things that you can look at right now by going to twoguystalking.com/gauntlet. They include liking the Fangbanger Podcast on Facebook, giant bonus.
Yes.
Providing us feedback about any of our shows here at Two Guys Talking, and a couple of other things, our newsletter sign up, super brief things that all enter you into a chance to win $100 cash. And remember, you can do that multiple times. All you've got to do is provide us some feedback.
Yes, and something a little bit better than just hi, or you guys are great, or, as more likely the case, you guys suck.
Yeah, the you guys suck posts, those don't get you to the cash running so much. Not so
no,
much.
wait. You can say we suck, but I want a detailed description as to why.
Good point. Good point. Whether it's positive feedback, negative feedback, we don't care, but just give us something salient. And we're happy to put you in the running again for $100 cash, or prizes that we'll have at the end of this True Blood season, which is September-ish.
Ish,
right before our Dexter podcast run again for season 7?
7.
My God.
It's been on a while.
I can't believe it's been on that long. Anyway, twoguystalking.com/gauntlet will give you all the details and the links. All you've got to do is click and listen, and you win $100 cash from Two Guys Talking. How cool is that?
Excellent.
Name me the other show that gives you cash for listening and telling what you think.
I don't know any.
I don't hear them. I don't hear anything, so it's got to be just us. All right, our first piece of fan feedback is from Invern in LA. Invern writes, "Hello, I just finished listening to your True Blood podcast. Like you, I did not like Eric humping his sister. Did you care for the? You like that, right?
So be it. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Oh, great.
I don't have a problem with it because, and you know what? You can look at my blog post.
Oh, that's right. That's right. What did you say in your blog?
In my blog post, I said one of the reasons why this is done in a show like this is for shock value, and also because sometimes it's hard to separate the fact that these beautiful people we see on television in these shows all the time are not people. They're not humans. They're monsters. Vampires are monsters. They eat people. They live for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, eating people. Werewolves. Werewolves are not people. They're animals. They do things animals do, like eat their own, for instance.
Or hump your own.
Or as the case may be. So sometimes I think the writers rightfully throw some really shocking things that go completely against what we would consider to be socially normal, that would violate our social mores, to remind the viewers that this is not a human you're watching. This is something completely alien to you.
Right, and that's one of the most salient pieces that I think David brought inside of our review of Episode 1. I forgot the name of that episode too, but...
Turn.
That's it. That he brought up about that, and he wrote a blog post over at bloggersblog.com. You can go there right now, or you can click on the link. We'll throw that in the show notes for this episode as well, inside of the YouTube channel, but also over at fangbangerpodcast.com. You can see it right in line there underneath this video. Invern continues. However, you should know Nora is Eric's sister through Godric. She is not his biological sister.
I don't know that for certain. I assume that she was the baby that was left alive when Russell destroyed his family. Somebody's got to be able to tell us. Go to our website, fangbangerpodcast.com, click on the web link, and give us your feedback.
Right. Also, you can give us your feedback, but also run through the other steps to get into the Gauntlet $100 giveaway. How cool is that? Great stuff. Invern continues with, I started out loving True Blood in the beginning. Now I'm having my own issues with the show, but I'm not giving up on it just yet. I must admit, I did agree with a lot of your comments, except where you talk about killing off Tara. Tara is annoying sometimes, but I still like her. I don't want to see her killed off. Not yet. Even though she is not the Tara that's in the books, she's still around in book 12. and so I want to see her around inside the show. Do you know anything about the book, Tara, in this? No?
Tara is in the book. She is not the same character that we see in this television show, and she has a much smaller role in Sookie's life.
I could go for a much smaller role inside of True Blood for Tara.
Me too.
How about you? Tell us what you think by going over to twoguystalking.com, click on the contact button, and enroll inside of the Gauntlet $100 giveaway. Thanks so much for your input, Invern. That's awesome input. And again, that puts Invern in for the running, because he went through the other steps, for the Gauntlet, which is, again, the $100 giveaway from Two Guys Talking. Robert Patrick, the T1000 from T2, coming aboard True Blood.
Probably not.
Really?
I don't know. Do you think it's him?
Well, I think so.
Wait, you know what? I think you're right. I think he's going to be Alsaid's father.
That's why I put it in the detail for the shows, because he's coming aboard the program.
All right. Okay.
But what it does throw into as well, remember, we don't do spoilers here, either in the True Blood Transfusion or inside of the Fangbanger podcast. So we're not going to talk about it, but it was awesome enough to mention, because I love me some Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
Robert Patrick is not only quintessential inside of Terminator 2 now, 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's a long time.
Good God. Anyway, not only was he quintessential in that, he's been a staple in just about anything that he appears in. I watched Safe House last night with my wife.
Yeah.
And he's in that. He's only in it for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 minutes before he gets shot to death. But he was great in it nonetheless, and I cannot wait to see what happens inside of this. It actually renews my interest in what's going to happen with the werewolves.
Excellent.
Great input for news. Our next piece of fan input comes from Paris in Mobile. Paris is a regular participant inside of not only the comments, but also the Facebook presence inside of the Fangbanger podcast experience, and we want all of you to go there as well. So remember, go to facebook.com/Fangbanger podcast and like that effort. You'll never lose out by doing that. You get all of the news and the push to spoilers that we don't talk about here inside of that presence. So remember to like that presence on Facebook. Paris starts off with, Season 5 has arrived, and I'm hyped once again for the show I fell in love with in 2008. We open right where we left off with Tara dead on the floor in Sookie's arms, and who should arrive but Pam. I absolutely love that she is the one who did the turning. It's certainly going to make for an interesting maker/progeny relationship, considering that they despise each other.
Yeah, there is that.
I love that too, and it's something that, as we arrive into episode 2, we didn't hardly get anything out of Tara.
Well, but what we did get out of Pam is she literally washed her hands of Tara and said that she was specifically Lafayette and Sookie's problem, and then she left.
And walked out, right.
And walked out.
Went to go change clothes out of the Walmart clothes.
Right.
Right, that was awesome. I have to say I like the energy of those two actors as they throw back and forth. Hopefully that will continue throughout this year as the season's rogue gallery begins to surface. Yeah. That's very well said, actually. Yeah. Rogues gallery, especially as we see the it's not the Syndicate, it's the Authority. As we see the Authority inside this episode, it really is a cast of characters.
Sure.
What did you think of the characters that we saw inside of that?
I thought that the inclusion of different types of vampires I thought was great. We've seen
talk about the child
vampire.
Yeah.
We had seen in previous seasons multi-ethnic vampires. And now we see what is sort of another staple almost of vampire fiction is a child vampire. A child vampire that has been around so long, or at least has become so powerful and influential that he sits on the council of 6 or 7 or however many people are the Authority.
Yeah.
And is not a nice person, apparently. He is desperately
making decisions.
Right.
I actually know people like that are younger.
You know,
so it's funny.
There's a couple of instances. I talk about it in the podcast that we just finished. Anne Rice writes obviously about a child vampire in an interview with a vampire. White Wolf in their Vampire the Masquerade series has got a couple of young-looking vampires that are hundreds of years old and incredibly influential and powerful. And it's a really, really good and interesting introduction to something completely different in the series.
And I love it when they're layering in pieces of that add-on story that we've gotten cautious about approaching inside of this season of True Blood, but that we love when it's meaty, when it's got some gravitas. I love that. You can pepper in all you want as long as it's got gravitas, and then you're eventually going to revisit it. That's the kind of story writing. And again, we talk about that in the episode review. For episode 2,
Authority Always Wins.
Authority Always Wins. If you click the links right above us, if you're at the Fangbanger podcast website, or down below us, if you're at the YouTube channel for Two Guys Talking, youtube.com/Two Guys Talking. Paris continues. Love the Bill and Eric stuff as always. Looks like they will be stuck together for the long run. I also really like the Wolfpack stuff. The new actress playing Marcus's mom has a really rough and tumble style about her. She's going to be the one to look out for this season. Lastly, I could not stop laughing at the new Steve Newland and his hopeless love for Jason.
Yeah. Once again, I'm going to buy Jason off of you. You know, that whole bit, that entire bit. I talked about them being sort of an Abbott and Costello bit. That entire bit was great because it not only showed the comedy of Steve, but it also gave Jessica a chance to be strong, which was nice.
And it also gave us, again, that depth of writing that I, as a viewer, I require. I require that. Mm-hmm. And that's why when they set the bar this high inside of the storytelling, why it can't stay there throughout the season with as many characters and as many storylines as they have and as many writers as they have on the program. I don't get it. I don't get it. Paris finishes out with, this season is certainly going to be an interesting one. Can't wait to hear from you guys. Well, you've heard from us, and we've heard from you, Paris, here at the True Blood Transfusion, our video-only fan feedback section from the Fangbanger podcast. Thanks again so much, Paris, for writing. Links to sneak peeks and what our Facebook presence is for. You guys now know that the True Blood Transfusion and the Fangbanger podcast, both of them, are not for spoilers.
No, not generally. We review something that you should already have seen.
Right. So that anytime that you push play for the Fangbanger podcast especially, you should have already seen something that we're going to be talking about inside that episode. That's why we don't bother putting in a spoiler alert, because we're hoping that you're going to be able to see the episode stuffs and the details inside of the podcast before you click on it and destroy the episode for yourself. So that's why you don't see any spoilers inside the episode, but why you also don't see them inside of this segment. We don't do spoilers in general. Where we do point to spoilers, though, is inside of our Facebook presence, which is, again, over at facebook.com/Fangbanger podcast. You can get all of the links and news that we think are appropriate, including links to spoilers. We don't discuss them either in that forum or here inside of the other two properties.
Right.
So go and like that now, again, over at facebook.com/Fangbanger podcast. It's 2 clicks. One to open up a web browser, type in facebook.com/Fangbanger podcast, and another click to like it. Remember, when you do all that liking and clicking, you may as well try for the gauntlet stuffs where you can win $100 cash from Two Guys Talking. Next piece of listener input is Sandra from Facebook. Sandra writes, just listened to your recent podcast and enjoyed it very much. I like the TV part of it. That is fun. I have to agree with most of the negatives you have in the first episode, especially that there's too much input and Tara coming back.
You see?
He's not alone.
I am not.
Nor am I. There are other people that don't care for Tara, especially how she's written. Again, we talk about placing that bar up so high.
Yeah.
Why not come up with something interesting for her or a delete button? That's a piece of Tara I've never understood.
I like the delete button.
Well, and especially for Tara. Sandra continues, but as the brother/sister humping goes, come on, Mike. This isn't Dexter. They're not blood related. I guess they have the same creator. And what a great way to show Eric nude for a long scene. Okay, well, as long as you're overt about what you're talking about with Eric, then I'm okay with the... No, wait a second. I'm not okay with the brother-sister humping. I get that you love to see some Eric nudeness, but spare us the brother-sister humping. How about, even if it's just a relationship where they're humping? Okay, no problem.
In the storage crate, I think I know what you would rather see.
Down by the river.
I think I know. You would rather the snow again from last season.
Is it snowing?
No, it's not
It's
snowing.
not snowing. Okay, just check it. Sandra continues. That's what I paid €29 at iTunes for.
Nice.
What a cheap date. I'm taking you out, Sandra. So I want more Eric in the nude and less Tara. And you forgot the Tori storyline. Where the F is this going to? We just talked about this.
Terry's storyline, we don't know. We were at the same position as
there
we
may as
were
well be
last
some
year.
snow falling down inside of the Terry. In fact, You know what? There probably was. When he's staring off into nothingness this episode, I could swear that I saw me some big-ass fairy snowflakes falling. Because that would have been at least more interesting than him staring into nothingness for a couple of minutes while Arlene tries to figure out what he's thinking.
Right.
Hated that. If there was a big hate inside this most recent episode, that's one of them.
Right.
What were one of the other ones that we talked about?
We talked about Tara, of course, and not caring too much for that. Oh, and the fake-out stakeout. I'm going to stake you, but I'm not. Oh, I'm going to do it. No. Oh, but...
Didn't much care for that. Remember, you can listen to all of the detail of that and the fun that ensues inside the Fangbanger podcast by clicking the links right above us if you're at fangbangerpodcast.com, or the links below us if you're at the YouTube channel for Two Guys Talking, youtube.com/Two Guys Talking. A great piece of input from Sandra. Oh, who wraps it up by saying, well, let's watch episode 2 and for better storytelling. And lots of Russell and some more New Derek. I think we've figured out where you stand, Sandra. And again, thanks for that. And it's great to know that there are cheap dates out there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. A note about director and director of cinematography, Romeo Torrone. Romeo Torrone is someone that we've had on this show, or on the Fangbanger podcast, but also over on the Dexter podcast, as well as Two Guys Talking, for his input on episodes that he's either directed or participated in or been the director of cinematography for. And not so strangely, episode 2, he is the director of cinematography, putting in all the lights, prepping everything for the cameras and the director to come in and shoot stuff. That's why you get great quality stuff inside this most recent episode. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that director of cinematography, Romeo Torrone, said recently, watch True Blood episode 2, shot by me. In 2 weeks, look for episode 504, directed by me. Let me know what you think. And remember, you can find director Romeo Torrone via the links that are below us if you're at the YouTube channel, or above us inside of the description for the Fangbanger podcast. Incredibly candid man, down to earth, and loves to participate with fans that love the show.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful spirit inside the show.
He was a delight to interview.
The last couple of pieces of feedback that we have here are from iTunes. I'm going to run through them as fast as possible. The first one comes from Eric on iTunes. Eric writes, fantastic, incredibly well done show. Reminds me of some of the better Lost podcasts. Yeah. What a great piece of feedback. Not only are you referencing something else that I do remember vividly hearing tons about the Lost podcasts, and that's why we actually had one on Two Guys Talking for a long period of time. You can find the archive of that podcast that was here on Two Guys Talking over at our archive over at twoguystalking.com. Just click on the podcast link. Way at the bottom of the podcast is the entire archive of every podcast that's ever been on Two Guys Talking, whether it's still current or it's one that's in the archive. They're all there. Great stuff. The second piece of feedback that also comes from iTunes is from Redbomb. And Redbomb writes, I love this podcast. I've listened to all of the True Blood podcasts, and this one is hands down the best.
Why, thank you very much.
Again, a great piece of feedback. Also telling us that you're listening to something else other than just the Fangbanger podcast, but other ones. Which brings up kind of a raw point that I wish we talked more about inside of the Fangbanger podcast, but that we'll definitely talk about here. There have to be 10 different True Blood podcasts that are populating iTunes right now. If you open up iTunes, you'll see a list of at least 10 different podcasts that are on there. I would say 6 to 7 of those haven't recorded in over a year. Yeah,
definitely. There are some that haven't recorded, didn't do anything at all for season 4. And there are some that have yet to post anything for season 5. There's maybe three fan-generated podcasts, because there is an HBO True Blood podcast. There's maybe 3 of us, Fangbanger podcast being one, that are current, that
follow the show week to week,
that have podcasts for the most current episode.
Right, which actually becomes a reference manual, which is how Two Guys Talking, frankly, makes all of its money. Is that we make the reference manual for a variety of things, whether it's something that's entertainment-based, or like the new Streetscape magazine effort. If you go to streetscapemag.com, you'll see exactly what they're making with their Streetscape TV episodes, but also their magazine push. That reference library that we make for everything is how Two Guys Talking makes our money. And so we hope that you will go to iTunes and put in what you think about our podcast and literally detail what you think, very much like Red Mom puts here. She continues, the highest production quality, an original theme song, and really great hosts. Honest and fresh. It's like having a conversation with friends about the show I love. And I love hearing comments like that, because when I started Two Guys Talking now 8 years ago in September, that's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted you to be in the same round table that we were talking about, having that conversation with the buddies and friends that you have, but we're having the conversation and you get to participate.
You know, a couple of years ago when Mike approached me about doing a movie review, we did Predator and Predators on the Two Guys Talking podcast. I listened to what he had to say about it, and it wasn't until I sat down in the chair with the microphone in front of me and we started doing the podcast that I really understood what you were talking about.
Right.
And, you know, since then it's grown, and now I do my own podcast, but the idea of sitting down and having a conversation with somebody intelligently about a property that you feel deeply for, even when it's not the best, it's great. And the fact that we can present it to you in a way that isn't ham-handed and sounds good and is got some production quality behind it, I think adds value to it. And all we really need from your viewers is to give us a little bit of feedback and a couple simple clicks on iTunes in particular. Give us some star ratings.
Right. And again, the vast majority of people are coming from iTunes to find us. And so that's where we would like you to present your outright feedback with what we're talking about inside of not only the Fang Banger podcast, but inside the Two Guys Talking properties. And there are many now. If you look for twoguystalking.com, the number 2, guystalking.com, all together, or Two Guys Talking, all together inside of iTunes, you'll find every single program that we've ever made, including the programs that are on the network, but also the ones that are actual Two Guys Talking properties. So please take the time, take just a moment to give us some feedback inside of iTunes. Redbomb finishes it up with, I found Two Guys Talking through this podcast and now I'm hooked. And we hope that you will also be hooked, not only on the Fang Banger, True Blood stuffness that you're here reviewing and looking at and having fun with, but also the entire line of Two Guys Talking properties that span a variety of movies, eras, and topics that we hope you'll like. So until next time on the True Blood Transfusion, the Fang Banger podcast video-only fan feedback segment featuring you, I'm Mike Wilkerson.
And I'm David Carete.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
You hit the button this time.
Okay. I can't see the cursor. Where is it?